Today we're going to talk about the commercial strategy and data-driven decision-making. Now, perfect. So the agenda for today is set up with 5 points. Yeah. First, the commercial strategy in the context of an early stage startup. Second, we're going to talk about what gets measured, gets managed. And third would be how to use existing data to make informed decisions. Fourth would be what to do when there is no data. And fifth would be data fallacies to avoid. Now, the first step of this presentation is how to set a strategic direction. So setting a strategic direction for new ventures requires considering two competitive trade-offs, right? The first question you have to ask yourself is either collaborate or compete with the incumbents, or from the innovation part, build a moat or storm a hill, right? These are the two questions you have to ask, which lead to this 2x2 matrix, yeah? That we're gonna talk later, right? So in the left corner we see the intellectual property, in the right corner we see the architectural strategy, in the bottom left corner value chain strategy, and in the right bottom corner we see the disruption strategy, right? So going ahead, what is the intellectual property strategy, right? For the company, it means to maintain control of the innovation and find a way to create value within the existing marketplace. Yeah? The main focus of the strategy is basically idea generation, the R&D part, compatibility with incumbents' existing systems, and high IP protection, right? If you can see on this 2x2 matrix, it's basically an intersection between collaborate and build a moat. Yeah? So as an example, I think one of the good examples is Dolby, or Dolby Digital, which is the global standard for sound technology. Yeah? Its business model is to license proprietary technology to Sony, Bose, Apple, and others, right? It doesn't have direct access to the end consumer, which is the people, but it has access to the main incumbents, right? Who sell to the main consumer. The next strategy is the disruption strategy, which is exactly the opposite of the intellectual property strategy. Yeah, it's at the intersection of storming a hill and competing. Yeah, what it actually means. Yeah, for the company, it means that the company competes directly with the incumbent. Yeah. And takes them by surprise with fast execution. Yeah? The main focus of this strategy is basically commercialization and rapid market share growth, focusing on niche customers segments that are poorly served by incumbents, and quickly building customer loyalty, given the ease of replication. Yeah? I think a very good example of this disruption strategy is Netflix, who challenged the incumbent Blockbuster by relentlessly focusing on niche customer, right? So, I mean, in the early days, they focused on the cinephiles versus mainstream consumers. Yeah, they implemented the DVD, which back then was not really a mainstream product. The VHS was for Blockbuster, right? So they mailed it to the cinephiles. So the guys who actually wanted to see, the latest movies in the best quality and whatnot, and they focused relentlessly on that, and then, of course, they grew from that. This is the disruption strategy. Now, the third strategy is the value chain strategy. It's at the intersection between collaborate and storm a hill. Yeah, the focus for the company of the strategy is on creating value for partners in the existing value chain and executing quickly. Yeah, the main focus of this strategy is to develop scarce talent and unique capabilities to become preferred partners in the value chain, as well as translating capabilities into enhanced differentiation or cost advantage for established companies. As an example, it's Instacart. I mean, it's a huge company that just recently IPO'd. I think it's around $8 billion valuation. It became the leading US internet grocer right, by fitting into and improving the grocery industry. So what I mean by that, they work directly with the largest grocery companies like Costco, Walmart, Whole Foods, and whatnot, and they focus relentlessly on the cost advantage, right, and creating the processes of last mile delivery and logistics, and actually bringing the customers, right, so on the customer acquisition. Yeah, this is the value chain strategy. And last but not the least is the architectural strategy. So the main kind of focus here is that, or the main idea for the companies here is to create and control a new value chain, often using a platform business, yeah, and to protect intellectual property. Now, this is one of the, I think, toughest strategies, right, because it's an intersection of competing and building a moat, so doing kind of two very strong things at the same time. This is what we see here, right? So compete and achieve control. I think the two great examples are Meta and Google, right? So what they did is basically they had an idea and they went with it. You don't really have much capability here to pivot, yeah, because you're so focused on building a new value chain or a completely new product, yeah. And the other point is to design an entirely new value chain and then control the key bottlenecks in it, which Meta and Google does in the ads business, right? Ads and social networking. But on another note, I think a good example is OpenTable, which is basically a proprietary platform that allows diners to make reservations efficiently, and in doing so, establishes influence over customer flow to restaurants. So what they do is basically booking a table at a restaurant. I think they were acquired by Priceline back in the days for $2.1 billion. So, I mean, they were doing well. Yeah, and what they did is basically they competed with the restaurant for bookings, as well as the digital part of restaurant booking, which they used to later on create profiles of the customers and whatnot. Cool. So now we have 4 strategies, right? So how as an early stage startup, or actually even as a corporate, designing new ventures, how do we actually choose? Yeah? I think the simple thing is to do the work, right? So fill in all the 4 or the quadrants, right? This creates 2 things. So first, it gives structure to the choice process. So basically, it allows you to kind of figure out on paper who is the target customer, what is the competition, what kind of other stuff you need to build, and 2, it identifies key capabilities and bottlenecks. So IP, feasibility, I mean, how much capital you need and whatnot. And I mean, once you have this, and let's assume you have kind of you can do a lot of things, or all 4 things ideally, yeah. I mean, the easiest way to choose is to basically choose the strategy that best aligns with the purpose of the venture or the purpose of the founders, right? So, for example, the founders would like to, they would like to have, a company that is, they don't want to compete, with large incumbents. They want to just help them, right? So that even though they can, they choose one of the strategies in the left corner, if they want to compete, etc., right? So this is the basics, right? So we've spoken about how to set a strategic decision or direction. And the next thing we're going to talk about the importance of measuring company performance. Now, I mean, it's a question to you. I think what I wanted to do is actually a more interactive thing, right? So I could speak less than you guys. So I think, don't be shy. I think it means what gets measured, gets managed. Please. Whatever you want.
Yeah, like every year, usually I start by creating the wish list of things I want to accomplish during the year.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, I was doing these classic mistakes. I want to read more, I want to make more money. But the moment I started to put more specific goals, like I want to make 10,000 euros more this year, or I want to read 25 books, then it became easier to understand it by the end of the year. If I'm this close to the goal, if it is accomplishable at all, taking into consideration all other goals that I have. And next year it was more clear how to set more realistic goals. And maybe also to tend to realize them.
Okay. Anyone? Yeah, I mean that's perfect. Actually, that's the answer. But if anyone else has, yeah, yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, that's part of the measurement. Yeah, part of the idea of actually seeing, both setting a goal and seeing the result and trying to figure out where you are. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just for the sake of it, yeah, performance measurement leads to continuous improvement and narrows down the focus of what matters. Is basically what was said before, right? So there are two things in performance measurement. So first, the venture should define early on its main goals as well as what constitutes success, right? So for example, one brand on consumers' mind, save consumers 50% of the time, etc. Yeah, and those goals actually, I mean, yeah, those goals are nice, but you do have to translate them into numbers, yeah, because the numbers are measurable, objective, and actionable. Yeah, as an example of what those KPIs can be or indicators can be is number of new customers, number of subscribers, number of new partners, revenue growth, etc. Yeah. However, not everything that matters can be measured, and not everything that we can measure matters. Yeah. And what do you think that means? Yeah. I mean, it always depends. It's my favorite quote. Yeah, it always depends. Yeah. 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 Yeah, exactly. Not everything that they give you in Pixel is actually usable or is even relevant. Yeah, exactly that. So yeah, so blind measurement can lead to several issues. Just measuring is not enough. Yeah, so first, the wrong metrics can lead to unintended consequences. So I think there is a good story, like the Cobra effect. Yeah, so what it basically, I don't know if anyone knows about it. Okay, perfect. Then I'll tell it to everybody else. So what is the Cobra effect, right? So back in the days, the British Empire had an issue with cobras, or venomous cobras in Delhi, in India, and they decided to kind of get rid of them. So they decided to give a bounty for each cobra that is killed or brought to the British Empire. So what, the number of cobras decreased. But people being entrepreneurial, what they did is they started breeding cobras, yeah, or growing cobras, yeah, and killing these cobras or using these cobras to get the bounty, yeah. And that, of course, led to an increase or a small increase in the number of cobras. The British government found out, they scraped the whole program, yeah, which led to unintended consequence that all these people who bred cobras just let them go, yeah. And in the end, basically, it meant that there's many more cobras than it was before, just because the KPI was not set up properly. Yeah. The second point is the human factors on which a lot of success relies are very hard or impossible to measure, right? So some examples are enthusiasm, mission alignment, going the extra mile. And the third point is the Goodhart's law, right? So when a measure becomes a target, it's easy to be a good measure. So I think a good example is if an employee is rewarded by the number of cars or software as a service products they sell each month, they will try to sell more of these products, even at a loss, right? They will give discount and whatnot. So again, there are several issues of blind measurement. We talked about how to set a strategic direction, the importance of measuring company performance, and now we're going to talk about using metrics or data to make informed decisions. Oh, another question. Good. So what does it mean being data-driven? Yes.
Basically means when you take a decision based on numbers.
Yes. Exactly.
Not just on
Yes, exactly, exactly. I'm a very big fan of this. You know, I use it every day, data, and I mean, I have to, but I also like it, right? Because it makes it less objective and very objective. Yeah, exactly. So, what does it mean being data-driven? So, being data-driven refers to using facts or data, not a gut feeling, to find patterns, inferences, and insights to inform your decision-making process. And you know, of course, there are two types of data. I mean, it's not a new thing for everybody, right? Internal data and external data. And we're going to speak about what it actually means or how to actually use that. So there are two ways of looking at internal data, right? The helicopter view and the deep dive view. Now, what does the helicopter view mean? Yeah, it means that, or when is it used, right? So it is used mainly to inform your general strategy by using global KPIs, yeah? And what it means is basically KPIs being key performance indicators or measurements, right? You have a global KPIs that you want to follow, like number of customers, recurring revenues, or gross profit, yeah? And under them, you have other smaller KPIs and you don't really care, I don't know, as a manager or as a manager of the unit, right? Because you only care about this. Your, let's say, salary depends on this. Your funding depends on this. You only care about that, yeah? Yeah. That's why you have the deep dive view, yeah, that is used for more narrow decision making, especially when trying to narrow down the problem, right? So, as an example, as you know, to spending less time on the platform. I mean, it's a completely different KPI from the global KPI, but it directly or indirectly, it directly impacts, yeah, the number of customers, the recurring revenues, and the gross profit, right? So once you, for example, yeah, you have the revenues going down, yeah, you ask your manager to look into that, yeah, and of course, revenues is a product of number of the quantity and the price, and then you know they go down and drill. Did the price go down? Did the quantity go down? And if the quantity went down, they go and check if you know, if it's a market trend or if it's a company trend, and they go down if it's a company trend. Okay, why is it going down? Do we have a churn rate and whatnot? Yeah, and this is the deep dive view that is mainly done, you know, as a as an exercise. But again, you know, there's a lot of people who like to do the deep dive view and don't really look at the helicopter view. I think that's a mistake. Yeah, and that's a mistake because in the end, yeah, it's important to know why your churn rate decreased by 0.2% or increased. Yeah, but I mean, your main KPI should be the number of customers and recurring. Next. Okay. Okay, so now we talked about the internal data, right? And now what to do when there is no internal data. Usually it happens when you have, you know, a new venture or a startup, right? So when there is no internal data, you should use external sources to make informed decisions and validate assumptions. However, the data you're looking for might not exist. External data is not tailored to your company, or external data can be scarce or outdated. Yeah? And what to do when there is no relevant external data? Like you pass through all of this, there's no data, what to do? There are two things you can do, right? So two ways to overcome the data deficiency. So first is using proxies, and second is developing your own data set. So yeah, in general, proxies are basically data points that are not in itself directly relevant, but can serve in place of the missing data as they are closely correlated, right? So for example, the growth of the number of internet users is a proxy for growth in e-commerce, total addressable market, right? So usually this data or external data is from the Institute of Statistics of Moldova or whatever, yeah, or other research, you know, and you know, to validate it or to kind of create and see the growth and understand the growth, you can use proxies or data that is closely related or correlated to this. Now the second point is own data set. So what it means is basically it means developing a measurement based on publicly available data, and triangulating this result, top down and bottom up, is important to make sure that the measurement makes sense. Now, you know, I had this back when I was working at a bus company startup, yeah, Flixbus. I had to figure out or develop the measure for total addressable market for bus passenger transport in Romania and in Europe, yeah. And of course, there is no data on the revenues, and there is no data, yeah. Or you have to pay like 3K, and then the data, I don't know, makes sense, doesn't make sense. Anyways, so I used two approaches. I used the two things, right, top down. So what I had is from the National Institute of Statistics, pretty much everywhere in Europe, the number of total bus passengers, and I had an average ticket price. Yeah, the way the average ticket price was set was based on internal data, some external research and whatnot, and I arrived at a number. Now, I mean, for me, and I think for everybody, that number might not make sense, or it might know if the number is right? So this is why you have to triangulate it, or you have to go bottom up. And in this case, what I did is I used the sum of all bus company revenues. Some of it is public, some of it is not. Usually it's public data, yeah, and did the bottom up, yeah. And what I had is the second variable, right? So I had the top down, the bottom up variable, and the real variable is in between those two, or an average of those two, right? If they differ significantly, yeah, so for instance, let's say it's $500 million for top down and it's 200K for bottom up, then your assumption about average price is wrong, or the Institute of Statistics doesn't do the right thing, or doesn't calculate properly, or the bus companies just don't declare all their revenues, yeah. So in this case, if you deep dive and you try to figure out where is the issue, yeah. Once you identify the issue, you kind of get the ranges as. Now, if I would have used only bottom up, I also wouldn't have known, because, for instance, bus company revenues, they might also include, selling of the luggage and selling and some maintenance and whatnot, right? So just doing that, the total market could be overstated, yeah. So doing all those together, I think in any context is important to have a great variable. Okay. Yeah. So okay, we have the two ways to overcome the data deficiency, but to supplement these methods, one should use sanity checks and as the last resort, educated guesses. Now, what is a sanity check? It's basically quick and easy method to make sure that the results are not impossible or contain simple errors, right? So, for instance, when calculating the total addressable market of anything, make sure to compare it with country GDP. Right? I mean, a simple example is if you calculate it outside and the total addressable market is in Moldova, I don't know, for e-commerce is $10 billion and the GDP is $10 billion, then obviously it's wrong, But this is the sanity check you do. I mean, there is nobody who can tell you it's right or wrong, but it's a sanity check you do to make sure that you're in ballpark or, right there somewhere, right? I mean, in the worst case scenario, right, which I don't like, yeah, but you can also do educated guesses. Well-informed guess based on experience or theoretical knowledge, right? And I also had an example here from my past experience with the same bus company. So what happened is that the German market, the TV ads for bus transport actually didn't work, yeah? And they said that it will never work anywhere else, right? Why? Because the guy or the chief marketing officer had the experience that it didn't work, and we don't have any budget for it, yeah. Because the product is just not being sold, right? I mean, what happened in the end is we convinced to get a small budget to test on that, and to see the return on ad spend and whatnot. But based on his previous knowledge, he concluded that making an educated guess, that TV ads will never work anywhere. However, they worked really well in Eastern Europe, yeah, and he was wrong. So this is why it's a last resort. Cool. So we spoke strategic direction, the importance of measuring company performance, using metrics or data to make informed decisions, and now we're going to speak about most common data fallacies to keep in mind, right? So having a data-driven approach is important. However, data without context and sanity checks can be detrimental, right? There are many data fallacies. However, the three most interesting or nice are false causality, cherry picking, and survivorship bias. Now, what does false causality mean? It's basically to falsely assume when two events appear related that one must have caused the other, right? So it's assuming correlation leads to causation, yeah? So on the right side, you can see a graph, yeah, a real graph, right, with real data. So you can see that per capita consumption of mozzarella cheese is correlated 96% with civil engineering doctorates awarded. Now, I mean, what you should avoid is assuming that an increase in mozzarella cheese, yeah, or consumption will lead to more doctorates in civil engineering to be awarded, or vice versa, right? These two things have no sense, right? I mean, it's like an edge case, right? But you know, there's plenty of cases where where this happens, right? So how to avoid this is to never assume causation because of correlation alone. Always gather more evidence and contextualize it. The second data fallacy is cherry picking. I think it's very well used in politics. So it means selecting results that fit your claim and excluding those that don't. Yeah, so kind of using it for your own argument. I mean, we all know that, you know, throwing data at people brings validity to your argument, and just saying stuff is not enough. Yeah, yeah. How to avoid this is usually when dealing with, you know, secondhand data or stuff that comes from a third person, is to make sure, I mean, to question it, basically. Yeah, to do your own sanity check and to kind of deep dive more into the results and ask yourself, what else am I not being told? And yeah, the last one is the survivorship bias. So basically, it means drawing conclusions from an incomplete set of data because that data has survived some selection criteria. Now, I think an easy example of this is the reinforcement of World War II bomber planes. So actually what happened during World War II in the US, you know, the planes were coming to the US base, you know, and the generals wanted to reinforce those places where planes were hit, right? To increase the chance that the planes return, right? They kind of modeled this stuff or put it on the plane, yeah, and so that a lot of bullet holes, right? This is the red things are the bullet holes, and you know the first instinct of theirs was to actually put reinforcements on all these red points. However, you know, a statistician in the US figured out that actually they have to put it on the white spots, and the reason for that is because they don't have any data for the white spots, is because these planes never returned, right? Which means that they were hit there and they never returned, so there's not enough data, so they have to put the reinforcement these white spots, and that actually led to much higher rate or much higher chance of the planes coming back. Yeah. So also, yeah, it's a bias, of course. So how to avoid this is try to understand all the data, including the failures, to have a wholesome view of the environment. And I think the great example, right? You all have these great successes, and you know, you all hear about the people, how they did their companies and whatnot, what went right, but you never hear about the other 95% of the failures of the startup, which I think is much more important, yeah, and why they failed. Yeah, that data or that information has to be yeah, taken into account because it's valuable to see the overall yeah, data set. Cool. One more thing. So, nice. Don't be like this. And
Democrat. Де ти то? Alt introduction.
And it should be like this. Okay? Like this is John Nash, it's the Nash equilibrium, the mathematician. Anyways, yeah, I think that's it for me.
Democrat. Де ти то? Alt introduction.
Alt introduction. At it. Okay, that's it. This is it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's do it. Let's do it more interactive. Many of you, I know, you have and own and manage your own companies in your projects, and of questions related if your company is going in the right direction, you have enough data about your users, and so on and so forth. So let's make it more interactive. If you have any questions related to your own company, please stand up, raise your a question, say, hey, I'm doing this and this and this, and we have this data, and like we don't know how to do the next steps. And then we can put this young mind to work for another half an hour till we get to that precious wine which is waiting for us. So, who is first?
Salut!
Salut.
Eu o întrebare să o pun în română, că mi-e greu să formulez în engleză.
Ok.
Prima întrebare. Putem să începem direct cu vinul? Sau,
Yeah?
alta întrebare. Eu sunt la platforma Respiro. E o platformă pentru psihologi. Noi avem, poate o dată în lună, reușim să aducem psihologii noi pe platformă.
Ok.
Totodată noi vedem că sunt vizite pe platformă, dar nu prea sunt programări. Și asta e o problemă pe care noi vrem să o rezolvăm. Respectiv, poate dacă ne dai niște indicii, ar fi foarte fain.
Ok. Deci, în primul rând, eu cred că deci, piața de psihologie, da, nu este atât dezvoltată probabil în Moldova, da? Adică...
La moment e în Moldova, dar avem un psiholog din Ucraina. Așa că...
Yes! Da. Ideal. Păi bun, cred că în tot Europa de Est cam așa e, da? Adică,
asta e planul, da.
Pentru că, până la urmă, știi, noi nu mergem și discutăm despre probleme. We man up and we do our stuff. Asta ar fi o problemă, cred că generală, da? Ce-mi vine în cap mie acum, direct, e, da, și unde, in the funnel, da? Unde să faci bounce-ul, da? De la și de ce, da?
Dar în cazul ăsta, cum vezi unde e bounce-ul? Te uiți, de exemplu, la metrici pe Google Analytics sau pe alte platforme de analiză și tu uiți acolo unde, pe ce pagină o plecat sau cum lucrează chestia asta? Cum cineva...
Deci eu nu sunt marketolog, da? Dar cam îmi dau seama ce se întâmplă, da? Uite, deci este conversion rate, da? Și dacă, if you track it, which you should, yeah, you can see where the steps for the customer stop, da? Spre exemplu, la landing page sau la click să vadă și doctor is acolo, da? Adică, practic, dacă spunem la landing page, oamenii văd page-ul și maybe they don't like it. Știi? Maybe it's offensive to them. I don't know. Yeah? Dacă ei pleacă mai departe și văd lista de psihologi, după lista de psihologi nu mai trec mai departe, da? Poate numărul de psihologi sau nu le place psihologii, da? Adică asta ar fi problema, da? Dacă click la psiholog, da? Și după asta poate au citit despre psiholog mai multe informații și nu le place. Adică până la urmă trebuie să deep dive de unde să trecă.
Deci, în esență, de pe care pagină ei pleacă.
Exact.
Asta ar fi un indiciu.
Da, un fi un conversion rate. Nu știu dacă este plata online, da? Aveți plata online? Perfect. Atunci ajungi până la coș și la coș, când vede că trebuie să plătești de mult. Da? Probabil prețul. Habar n-am. Da? Alternativ poți faci customer pe care ai acum să-i întrebi what works and what doesn't.
Vezi că domeniul psihologiei așa e cumva sensibil, nu poți să te duci direct la client să-l întrebi.
Okay. Poți face un survey anonymous. Îl trimiți prin e-mail. Adică A/B testing, la fel poți să faci.
Da, asta de design, de nivel de interacțiune.
Exact.
Fiecare specialist al problemă.
Exact. Deci e testing. Principal testing. Nimeni nu poate să spui nimic. Până la urmă, dacă nu testezi, nu-ți dai seama. Adică noi speculăm acum. Da, este hit jar.
Da, este atât de mult că când le pui pe toate, absolut nu mai lucrează. Dacă îmi dau definiții la arată la versul. Hai să spunem așa, zilnic, poate în jur de 50-100 de liste, conturi create zilnic cam 5.
Sold.
Noi avem e-book-uri care cumva
Deci poate să nu fie legat de data. Până la urmă, da.
Eu mă numesc Dorian și am startup-ul meu în domeniul facilitării networking-ului și mai exact business card-uri virtuale cu NFC. Și întrebarea e dacă au avut fail alte companii din domeniul dat, eu are un data-driven decision? Spre exemplu, mi-a sugerat niște băieți care au făcut un startup de genul și au investit 80.000 de euro în startup-ul dat.
Ok.
Eu începând n-am nici pe departe așa bugete. Nu intru în domeniul dat dacă așa investiții s-au făcut și fără return?
Probabil. Adică nu pot să mă pronunț pe ce au făcut ei, dar adică până la urmă 80.000 de euro nu-i puțin pentru chestia NFC de exchange of cards, da? Da, adică până la urmă ei au făcut, au făcut total addressable market, au văzut cât sunt businessman, știi, și au calculat că e teoretic, practic, poate să plătească. Până la urmă au avut asumții, da, și asumțiile au fost corecte dacă they failed. Asta 1, și 2, ori nu a fost timpul corect la care au început chestia asta. Că, adică Facebook nu era primul, da, și Google tot nu era primul, dar eu au făcut totul corect, la timpul corect, and it worked, știi, până la urmă. Și atunci, poate timpul nu era corect. Da? Dar ar fi ideal dacă ai acces la dânsii să discuți cu dânsii mai mult, deși nu au lucrat și deși nu da? Nu știu cum cu iOS 17, cu chestia asta, cât de mare e marketul, dar da. Adică it is data-driven până la urmă, da? Doar dacă n-ai, știi cum, milioane de euro și mai încerci să mai faci aceste chestii. Eu cred.
Mulțumesc.
Da.
Bună ziua, Artemie, mulțumesc frumos pentru prezentare, e fantastică. Am două întrebări, dacă îmi permiteți. Ați văzut, eu chiar veneam aici pe drum și am văzut că în ChatGPT versiunea cu plată permite deja uploadarea Excel file-ului pentru a extrage niște rapoarte. Ați încercat ceva cât de bun este?
E recent, n-am încercat, dar am văzut cu chiar
Dar it's nice,
da.
very nice.
It's nice, exact.
Pentru că noi facem rapoarte destul de des și știu cât timp asta ia. Doar să analizez, să zicem, vreo 100.000 de linii, să analizez ca să dai un răspuns. Acum el face asta destul de rapid. Nu știu cât de accurate asta.
Păi, știi cum, este chestia asta garbage in, garbage out, da? Și dacă pui raport care nu are niciun sens, eu o să-ți dai ceva care nu are sens. Nu ai nevoie de persoană care să dea seama ce e în raportul ăla și să creează o anumită insight, da? Care nu știu cât de simplu e pentru ChatGPT și cât de simplu o să fie. Da? La nivel general,
vom testa atunci.
Da.
Și a doua întrebare. Noi avem un startup în domeniul Horeca și, evident, într-un anumit momentul să căutăm investiții mai serioase. Dar știu că în această etapă des suntem întrebați să pregătim un plan financiar pe 5 ani, ceva de genul acesta.
Da.
Ceea ce pentru mine este o întrebare puțin ridicolă, pentru că ea este bazată pe asumări peste asumări, pentru că nimeni nu poate ști cât de mare de fapt va fi nevoie de echipă, câte cheltuieli vor fi reale pe marketing, pe development și așa mai departe.
Da.
Dintr-o parte, advised, da, ca să facem cu cifre cât mai mari, ca așa mai atractiv, dar în același timp ea trebuie să fie cât mai real, pentru că ca să poți cât de cât să arăți we're going in the right direction.
Da.
Cum de găsit, iată, this golden middle ca să faci real, dar atractiv în același timp?
Păi de obicei să faci o range, da? Nu știu cum e range în română. Un range. Un diapazon, perfect. Un diapazon, da? Faci și deja de acolo muncești. Adică eu, sincer, tot așa sunt de acord că chestiile astea cu 5 ani înainte never works. Da? Și la fel chestia asta și cu companiile mari. Și toate bugetele se fac pe viitor și deja se mai întâmplă ceva și nu știi, da? Dar probabil pentru un VC investor e ca un homework, da? Pentru tine. Cum ar fi, da? Adică buckle doesn't measure your way, how smart you are, just measure it measures how good you can do it. Și așa, eu cred că aceeași chestie și la financial forecasting, da? În care if you have your ducks in order și nu sunt niște chestii genul tu să ai 10.000 de utilizatori într-o piață de 200.000 de utilizatori într-un an, da? Adică ridicole, le dă confidence sau confidență investitorului. Da? Adică până la urmă ei doar să vadă, știi, dacă asta unul. Și doi, ei tot au a lor, știi, tot au adresul la market și au ideile lor și cam să uite cum chestia asta, adică intră în their investment thesis. Da? Adică cum startup-ul și where it will be and whatnot. Da? Adică până la urmă, it's a necessary evil. Da? Trebuie să faci. Eu nu sunt de acord. Poți să le spui tot. Exact.
Eu am făcut cu contabila noastră, dar pur și simplu fi... Dar eu zic, cum să știu cum va fi? Credem că e așa.
Foarte
exact.
Trebuie să fii foarte direct. Așa să fii și gata. Nu, glumesc. Dar, adică, până la urmă, corect, dar assumption e important și la assumption se uită foarte mult și asta să fie challenge întotdeauna assumption. Da? Și trebuie să fii gata, adică cum să găsești chestia asta cu milioane de euro și cu 100.000 de euro, adică trebuie să fii gata să base it into something. Da? De asta ai proxies and stuff, vezi că, uite, să mărești numărul de persoane care folosesc internetul, asta înseamnă că putem să folosim cam același growth la chestia asta, da, la Horeca să mărești numărul de persoane, ori nu știu, numărul de Horeca companii, numărul de Horeca companii se deschide și poți folosești mai multe chestii, da, ca proxy. Da?
Bună ziua! Eu sunt Mihai, am un startup în health tech și asta e cea mai mare problemă care o am la moment. Deci, da. Deci, ideea este că startup-ul are mai multe direcții de business, adică B2B, B2C. Deci, din interviurile noastre, cumva am făcut un interviu la 400 de mame, 80% de mame au problemă și acceptă așa soluții. Deci, până vinde lor să vedem real dacă ești gata să fac commitment, între noi sunt 1,5-3 ani. Adică eu nu pot să fac un commitment. Pe de altă parte sunt spitalele care ei au nevoie de așa device. Adică cel puțin spitalele din Moldova au și nevoie de așa device. Am vorbit cu medicii din Moldova. Mai este o direcție partnership cu alte companii care cumva tot se ocupă de securitate, adică în domeniul securității. Acum, cum eu să măsor în ce direcție eu să mă dezvolt? Spre exemplu, eu am posibilitatea să dau la B2C la alte companii, să vând device-ul meu, să mă focusez pe B2B, pe spitale, sau să mă focusez pe alte companii, sau să mă focusez pe contract cu companiile de asigurări. Cum să fac corect? Pentru că în Moldova nu e clar, dar să mă duc în Germania, în Viena, acolo... informația asta. Asta e o întrebare. Următoarea să vedem.
Ok, da, deci e testing, da? Trebuie să testezi. Trebuie să până la urmă de unde vin consumatorii, de unde vin consumatorii, da? Majoritatea. Că până la urmă, ok, poți să întrebi, voi să comparați? Și tot zic că da. Ei n-au niciun incentive să spună nu. Da?
Dar nu pot să-l vând până nu certifi. Dar nici să-l certifi trebuie să câteva milioane. B2C sau B2B, da. Deci trebuie să învață.
Așa,
Să
corect.
învață, nimeni nu poate. Să învăț cu cine să lucrez. Ați găsesc parteneri care pot să facă asta, dar ideea pe ce direcție să mă axez, că nu pot să merg în toate. Adică trebuie cumva să argumentez. De acolo îți vii banii, deci mă focusez. Nu pot să rezolv toate problemele din lume. Ori rezolv problema medicilor, ori rezolv problema părinților.
Atunci te uiți la valoarea pieței, care e cea mai mare. Da? Valoarea pieței simplu e să vinzi, sau cât timp. Pentru că, până la urmă, dacă spui că vinzi la părinți, da? un an jumătate, sau ceva genul ăsta ai spus, da? E timp ca să vinzi. Eu cred că
Ca să-l certific.
Ca să certifici.
Ca să pot să-l vând. Nu pot să vând. E device care cumva are legătură cu datele vitale. Și fără CA nu pot să vând nimic.
Păi poți să dai un prototip la părinți vieți, nu?
Nu corect. Nu am voie.
N-ai voie. Ei, știi cum, n-ai voie, dar se poate. Știi cum, până la urmă, nu avea voie și Uber să fie, știi? Adică, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than to ask for,
Nu, Moldova nici nu avem drept să facem asta. Noi avem regulare pentru device.
Da. Nice.
Salut! Mersi mult pentru
Sigur.
trainingul foarte interesant. Eu reprezint startup-ul Artemie in English. Noi învățăm engleza jucând și chiar creând propriile jocuri pentru copii de la 4 la 9 ani. Tot asta facem prin intermediul ochelarilor VR. Și așa eu am o întrebare. Dacă totuși vorbim despre data-driven, vorbim despre ceva să măsurăm. Da? Și eu am așa întrebat. Ce să măsurăm pentru ca să asigurăm o creștere a startup-ului?
Three questions. Ce să măsurăm ca să... Păi depinde ce vreți. Depinde, again, de goal. Care e goal? Să aveți mai mulți copii? Să aveți mai mulți vânzări? Să aveți mai multe profit? Adică cam toate trebuie să fie măsurate. Ca să crea. Asta este motorul de creștere, da? Deci e revenue, da? Deci e price și quantity. Quantity, numărul de copii, numărul de asta ar trebui să fie măsurat.
Ok, mersi. Poate mai sunt câteva idei, că asta e clar.
Okay.
Asta nu-ți vor ajunge, da. Poate mai sunt
E complicat, cred că am nevoie mai multe informații despre startup ca să pot să mă pronunț asupra ce alte KPI pot fi folosite. Da, corect.
Ok.
Nice.
Salut!
Salut!
Reprezint startup-ul Literare. Noi facem, scotem office management-ul în ceea ce face office managerul oficii. De regulă noi vrem să o facem noi pentru oficii. La moment noi avem două direcții mari, adică două direcții în care putem să mergem, ca și unul dintre ideile precedente. Cu care lucrăm sistemul B2B, dar într-un caz noi oferim biblioteci fizice, dar dinamice pentru oficii, gen o bibliotecă de 50 de cărți, care odată la 6 luni se face refresh, adică se face mereu, cărțile se updatează. A doua idee e că noi livrăm la oficii produse, iarăși groceries, staff pentru birotică și tot de genul. Iarăși mentenanță în caz că e nevoie. Și ce apare dilema? Noi avem doi clienți pentru prima idee și un client pentru a doua idee. Prima idee nouă ne ard banii, adică noi intrăm în minus cu ea, dar clienții care avem sunt companii mari, care ne dau oarecum un mini extra PR. Iar a doua idee este mai validă pentru companiile mari, deja au un office manager și să ne băgăm la momentul dat în concurență cu ei nu e prea logic, să obțin acum. Companiile mici nu au nici buget pentru un om angajat special, de aia fac singuri. Aici deja ne putem băga și putem face ceva frumos. Are sens să mergem în minus pentru companiile mari, după așa, o părere?
Depinde, știi, până la urmă. Deci, ați încercat să vindeți a doua parte la companiile astea?
Da.
Și?
Au persoană care face asta deja și sunt
Ok, deci probabil nu vindeți la persoana care are decizia, teoretic, da?
la top.
Aha. Și nu vreau să dai afară persoana?
Pur și simplu, nu,
To course. Adică, până la urmă, dacă le salvați costul, da, de chestia asta, ar fi no-brainer să vă angajați. Dacă
Pe lângă-
costați mai mult,
da.
atunci e altă întrebare. Da? Adică depinde, deja depinde unde vreți să... Adică startup-ul. Compania trebuie să facă bani. Da? Și adică dacă vă ajută în altă parte, da, și vedeți, nu știu, mai multe companii mai mici care vin din cauza că lucrați cu companii mari pentru că aveți stempul de approval, da, atunci țineți. Da, evident, companiile cele. Dar depinde mai multe chestii, da? Depinde cât de mult pierdeți acolo, cât de mult câștigați acolo, da? Dacă pierdeți puțin, it's fine, dacă pierdeți mult și nu puteți să vă susțineți în următorii 2 ani, atunci maybe not, ori tăieți o companie din 2, da? Și da, I mean, it depends.
Okay.
Am nevoie mai multe informații.
A round of applause for Artemie.